I know these videos have been done. This car is still fairly new to me. I just got back from driving this and shooting flames. So I just want to put this in perspective. The reason we're going to do this today is because I feel like I have other driving experience that might just bring a little bit of a different perspective of why I love and hate the things I do. And I mean, literally, I just drove the most epic raw race car ever, and then I'm gonna go talk about the things I love and hate about this. And I just took this up to the mountains about a week and a half ago and drove the piss out of it. I did 5 hours, like 3 hours of hard driving in Blue Ridge Mountains, and then I did 8,000 miles in this car last year, 4,000 of which was hard driving in the Tail of the Dragon, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, all that stuff. So now, turnaround, we have this epic piece of machinery that is the Shelby GT350R, which I know you're all familiar with. Again, I know you've seen these before, but Miller and I thought it would be cool to talk about, now that you understand where we're coming from, why I love this car so much, and the things that I think could be tweaked a little bit to make it even better. So stay tuned for this. Number one, the looks of this car are unreal. And back in the day, I wasn't really a huge Mustang fan like I am now, and I get it now, finally, but this car, for some reason, just has a presence to it, especially when it's going down the road. And the way I know that is I've gotten Miller to follow me. Miller loves driving this car, so he follows me a lot in it. A lot of times I'll be out in the GT500, or like today in the GT40, and I get to stare at this thing in the rearview mirror, and boy, does it have a presence to it. Not like any other Mustang. I mean, the little bit of a sleeker and beefier front end, how low it sits to the ground, just the angles, especially the color on this one. I mean, you can't go wrong with avalanche gray and black. But there's just something about how everything on this car just came together so well. I love the design of the wing, even more so than the design of the wing on the GT500, which that's one of my favorite cars of all time. But like the back end just has presence. And I've also followed Miller in this car a lot. And I love getting behind it because just staring at it, the turn signals are sequential. Like, it just has this like really unique kind of cool feel, this race car feel on the road. So the stance, and that's one thing I was gonna mention as we came around, but Miller, look at that fitment. And I've never had rubbing issues front or back. It's a Mustang, but it's not a Mustang. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. So this is gonna lead into a couple more things we're about to talk about. So let's get in the car. Do love seeing that GT500 back there. Dang, what a car. I don't know, should I take that car on a rally? Okay, so let's talk about the next thing. Let's talk about the handling, since we're in some windies here. The handling in this car is absolutely unbelievable. I have nothing negative to say about the handling in this car whatsoever. It doesn't rub, number one, even though it looks like it's sitting on the ground, but it just holds the road so well. It does everything you want it to do, it does. Everything you tell it to do, it does. And it does it in a way where you just feel like so confident and connected. And driving and owning a lot of supercars and stuff, like, that's what they do best. I never would have expected it to also be what a Shelby does best. I mean, effortlessly doing, 60 plus miles an hour in a turn like that, 70 miles an hour in a turn, and it's like, I could do it with one hand. I mean, it's just so planted and so smooth. I love this car for how it rides. So that's another one of the major reasons I love this car. Okay, we're gonna talk about the motor for a second, because we just got onto a main drive and I didn't get on it too hard, but I got on it hard enough. And this car, here's the con. Car is way underpowered. I mean, it's still what, 500 and something horsepower? It just doesn't do it. It just doesn't get up to speed fast enough. And yeah, it could downshift to like second gear right now. And then there's a little bit there. I mean, it's fast, don't get me wrong, this car is fast, but if you drive the GT500 that's sitting behind me right now as a camera car, that's a bat out of hell. This definitely lacks torque. Now, granted, here's the big positive swing to that whole thing. And this is why in one of my GT40s, I have a 5.2 Illuminator crate motor, because I do love this motor, but it's for a completely different purpose than pulling. You don't do pulls with this motor. You don't line up next to someone on the freeway and decide you want to race them. It's just not what this car is made for. I just drove this car in the mountains for a long time up in Blue Ridge Mountains, and I loved this motor up there because the power band is so linear and the power band is so controllable that it just excels in the windies like not very many other cars do. And it revs out to over 8,000 RPM. I think it's 8,300 in this car. So do I love this motor? Absolutely. Is it underpowered? Absolutely. But it wasn't really built for that anyway. So if you want a car that's gonna knock your socks off, that's the brother to this, get the GT500. But if you want a car that's really fun in almost every circumstance, get one of these. I would not suggest supercharging it. I know people that have. They say that a lot of guys who apparently have supercharged this, I have a friend that did, it makes the car a little bit unbalanced. So there is that part of it as well. But I just feel like I gotta drive one. I gotta drive a supercharged version. But what I was getting at is the reliability. Everybody knows this car knows that there's a reliability issue with these motors. They're starting to find or know already, I'm not sure yet, because I'm still new to this car, that a lot of it's user error. Now the motor does burn oil. I've heard 1 quart for every 500 miles, at least the older ones like this. So I think as long as you're checking your motor oil often and your levels, you're probably gonna be okay. But that's what scares me about throwing a supercharger in this, because I really do want to do it, but my car's under warranty, so I'm not gonna do it because I just don't want to risk it. So that's the only con to the motor. Other than that, this motor is just it's a marvel. It's unbelievable. The high rev is worth everything else that is a downside to this motor, because it just does what it does so well: track and windies. All right, let's talk about transmission for a minute. So this is the next. I actually don't hate the transmission at all. There's one little con to it I'll tell you about, but this transmission's amazing. I mean, the feel in the hand, like when you're shifting, it just feels incredible. You know how some cars, if you've driven a lot of manuals, they just feel a little dead, or they feel like they just kind of float. This thing has a very defined shift and gear feel. Oh, this car sounds so good. But you can feel the detents really well. So when I was in the mountains doing this drive, I just felt that much more connected to the car because of the feeling I was getting in my right hand. That, and then the shifts are just seamless. They just do. Sorry, just get a little distracted when driving this. And also Miller's telling me to get closer so you can get better footage. So the one downside, I mean, the pedal feels great after first gear, but the one thing it took getting used to was when the car's in a stop and you're trying to get it to start moving, whether in reverse or first, the pedal engages way up at the top, and then there's some sort of spring load. I don't really, it's very unique to me, but actually, yeah, it's right at the top there. It starts to come back, and then there's this very like aggressive spring action that kicks in that's unlike any other manual I've driven. So that took a little getting used to. But the thing I do like about that detent is you know exactly where the gear is going to engage. And you might say, well, that's like every other car. It's not. I mean, I've driven everything from manual army trucks to the GT40, the GT, all these things, right? And I've never felt that exact spring load feel that I have in this car. So that's the only con per se, but you drive this car a few times and you just get used to it. Ah, it's so good. But yeah, it does exist in every gear. It's just the first couple times you drive this car for the first time, you're gonna feel it and notice it, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, I hate this. And then it just goes away because you just get used to it. And then you're like, oh, actually kind of like that. So that's all I have to say about that. All right, guys, we're back in the garage. We had some tacos, fantastic. We've enjoyed this video so far. One of the things we want to talk about was, now, I love driving my GT40 and my Ford GT. So to me, this is a positive, but to some people, it can also be a negative. The analog feel of this car, and the way it was most prevalent to me was, I actually bought my 22 GT500 first, which has, it doesn't have like the standout screen they have now, the big TV, right? The big elongated TV, but it does have this similar dash setup, and it's like inset, but it's all digital. This is an analog feel. To me, I love this. When I get in that car or out of that car and I get in this car to drive it, it's refreshing that I feel like I'm still kind of driving an old school race car, but it's a new car, right? And then when I get my GT40, it's a whole different ball. It's just raw as hell. But some people might not like this. Like, some people might want that digital screen in here. So, you know, it's for anyone's flavor, whether it's positive or negative, I don't know. I happen to think it's a huge positive because I also get to drive and enjoy the other, right? So, and I gotta plug the GTD for a second because we are very hopeful that we either have, by the time it's announced, or this video comes out, that it's already been announced that we got an allocation, or that we're still waiting to hear if we got an allocation. Because if we do, you guys are gonna get to see a lot of content, not only with that car, but comparing it to these two. So, just saying. And that car has now the forward, like technology dash package thing, so huge.
I just realized that the GTD is gonna be the combination of both of these and a Ford GT. It's gonna be all three cars.
It's gonna be insane.
I didn't realize that.
It's gonna be insane. And it's more a Ford GT than anything that has resemblances of the Mustang inside it, which I love even more because look at, so anyway, we digress. Oh, by the way, if we do get an allocation and we spec the car, we're gonna talk to you about what colors we're gonna do. And we really love, I'm just gonna go on a little rant for a second on the GTD because you've stayed around this long. We really love the blue they came out with. It's very similar to the Brittany blue, but also how sick would a GTD be with avalanche gray and black and no wing? I think we're gonna go touring. I think we're gonna go without a wing.
I like it.
Because everyone's gonna get a wing and they're badass and the technology is amazing, but I think we're gonna do it without a wing. To be different, because you know how we like to roll around here. But anyway, I hope this was somewhat insightful and that you enjoyed watching, and we can't wait. Stick around for GTD possibilities, because if we get that car, there's gonna be so much content on this channel surrounding the GTD that you will not want to miss it. See you later.